Recording in progress.
So to talk about the Chameau project, we can try to set up a meeting to get the school, town, village together. Talk about their options might be on 487. I'm not sure, Justin, is that something where it might be helpful to have you there as well, or I guess I can start with them and see. Dave Paulson may be fine too, handling that at this point in time. But.
Well, I would put it to Bill as our county legislator representative. It was a suggestion from the chairman. I'd leave it up to Bill whether or not we do it. I think it makes sense, hearing all the potential pitfalls of a poorly written pilot, that it may make sense for us to provide technical assistance through the 487 process, should they decide to move forward with it.
Yes, and I've already been asked by the town and the village to set up that meeting, so.
Oh, good.
Okay. I just think, we were all comfortable with Matt Moses, and now we're hearing things that Justin has brought up that make a lot of sense that were missed. And having seen 147 pilot was literally from a different area, 2 pages long. Okay, there's no way it's going to deal with the long-term protections that not only we, but the taxing jurisdictions need to provide if they're going to enter into one of these pilots. So I just think it makes sense to do. And if we have to underwrite some of the costs to make it protected, I think that makes sense too.
Right, and I would love to have Justin at that meeting, because I'm not sure about Mr. Paulson's familiarity with 487 yet.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help out. And really the goal is to consistency. If 487 is utilized and the respective boards are in favor of providing that exemption vehicle, a priority should be put on consistency, certainly between the contracts of 3 or 4 being used, with an emphasis on not only consistency in how they're put together, but having their technical provisions and terms be as consistent as possible. The same tax years are being addressed. The payment amounts are set forth in an intelligent way. There's assignment provisions that are meaningful and understandable by all 3 or 4 taxing jurisdictions, so everybody's made aware if there's an assignment or sale of the project. And if there's default provisions, what happens if they're not paid? Does the exemption get pulled away by just the school because they happen to be more aware or in tune with what's going on with a particular project? It's just difficult for all 3 or 4 political boards to move affirmatively or respond to an issue affirmatively and consistently if there's a disruption. Again, without putting too fine a point on it, having a one single pilot contract deployed by the IDA is a little bit more nimble and responsive than having to respond as a community through 4 different or 3 different political boards. It just creates challenges. So some of those can be overcome through just consistency in drafting and preparing the actual contracts in a way that you're getting through each of those political boards cleanly. But also, certainly you have to give deference to their council and their comfort level, the town council, the school attorney, if there's a village attorney, and certainly Dave, on behalf of the county, is a great lawyer. But again, these are very specific things. It's a very unique and kind of specific subject area that no one can be expected to be an expert on unless they do it every day of their lives. So to the extent that, we can provide technical assistance, that would certainly help the taxing jurisdictions. One of the other downsides, it's an upside and downside, and it's self-serving again, sitting with the IDA hat on, your IDA folks, and I'm generally an IDA counsel. When projects like this deploy through an IDA, the expenses associated with legal counsel and putting the deal together are clearly borne by the developer, and that's triggered in the first instance when they sign the IDA application. The 487 pilots don't have that kind of affirmative protection. what we've seen, and it's not a huge criticism, it's just what it is that the town says, oh geez, we've got this developer, we're generally favorable of providing a 487 pilot, or whoops, we missed the 60-day letter, but we can still put a contract in place. The town's paying its lawyer out of its general fund. Same thing with the village, the school districts, if it's their school attorney spending 50 hours that month and 20 of it's on a pilot. Same thing with David, at the county level, the guy's like anybody else drinking out of a fire hose, trying to deal with all of the legal issues associated with the county. And he's spending significant amount of time addressing a contract that generally is viewed as favorable to move forward on. The taxing jurisdictions are bearing those early costs without indemnity. So is there a way, it's a proactive suggestion saying, well, be favorable and move a pilot through your political board and get it approved. But gosh, if your general fund or your legal budgets are getting hit a little bit, the developer ought to reasonably be expected to absorb some of those costs. That's the taxpayer shouldn't be borne or responsible to take on a significant expense that's tied to giving somebody a tax break. That's just my philosophical perspective, but it might be relevant.
In Zembiac, what I would probably suggest is if this moves through those 4 boards, because I think we have town, village, school, and county.
Yes.
If they're favorable to have us act as, I'll call it a closing agent, for lack of a better description, maybe we should draft up an agreement that we act as a closing agent and they pay our legal fees. We maybe waive our fee as normal, and we'll kind of work out how they reimburse the legal fees essentially. I know it's kicking the can down the road from what Justin said, but if they're already willing to pay the legal fees and possibly not get the best possible outcome, what's the difference if they split legal fees and get the best possible outcome? In essence, instead of paying 4 lawyers, you pay 1, and the other one acting in an audit role. It's just my kind of general opinion.
We see they're up to that.
That's a good idea. And I'm just literally speaking out loud here because we're kind of throwing ideas at the wall. But again, the consistency of pilot is a concern, which is a reasonable one. Are they paying different amounts across 4 contracts at different points of the year? The school gets paid in July, and maybe the town gets paid in February, and no one really knows who's current. If there's a consistency of contract or a joint contract deployed by the 4 taxing jurisdictions and they all become signatories to it, theoretically the IDA could be an ombudsman, collect 1 payment a year and spit it out just as a bit, not an IDA exemption. It's a 487 exemption, but perhaps the IDA is getting paid a nominal fee every year just to collect and remit.
Maybe that's where your $1,500 fee we're talking about, just to be the, whatever, they pay the legal fees, get a memorandum of understanding where they're closing agent, they're all signatory to it. We make sure everything's kept in a non-default status. We kind of do the administrative crap for them since we're probably better at it, frankly. I hope we are.
Yeah.
And then we kind of just look after it. So I don't know, Bill, if that's something, since you have close contact with at least 3 of the 4 agencies, that seems workable. It's all you're doing is trading costs. So instead of paying Dave Paulson to do a lot of the legwork, you're paying some portion of Justin's overall work. Because to do the document for 4 agencies as more of one document should be less than all 4 agencies independently coming up with basically a blender's worth of legal jargon that don't match and probably favor the developer when you're all said and done, and not the taxing jurisdictions.
Yeah, just be aware Joe Russell is the town's attorney.
That's fine.
Just information.
Yeah.
The other thing, a little history from the town, and Justin, you're right, with the town, the tax rate is really low. They were lukewarm about a pilot from the beginning. Their tax rate's like 53 cents. So the money they're going to get from a pilot is minimal. What they were looking for initially, and may still be looking for, is some sort of host community agreement.
Right. The other thing too, Bill, to your point, let's say the town feels they're well represented by Joe, which they are. If they don't want to be part of the MOU, that's fine. I mean, it's really up to any of the independent agencies. If they think they can singularly go after this and deal with it, they're representing their local taxpayers. The IDA's got no skin in this game.
Right.
We're just offering, as you've requested, the county to say, hey, since you're better at this, could you sort of look after it? And kind of the joint concept that Justin and I were just now speaking about really is the best way. So if they approach this as 4 entities pointed in the same direction and all aligned and leveraged against one developer, it's way better than one developer leveraged against 4, what I'll say, much weaker entities on their own. And it's not a disrespect of any one of the entities, but clearly they're all weaker when they're singled out, which is exactly what the developers want to do in the first place, is single them out.
I think it's important to remember that the only reason we're talking about this project is because it's been such a mess.
And it's built.
Norbert started, it worked, he sold it to a project, he owns the underlying land now. I don't know why anyone wants to deal with Norbert, because he's not the project. And that goes back to a lot of what Justin's been talking about, is who is the project owner? So I think it makes sense to get involved to try to work through this so that everybody's protected.
Yeah, and I don't know how, I mean, at this point, what leverage does the town have to an HCA if they've already done site plan approval and the project's on? Well, no, it's.
No, it's village.
Right.
That would put it as well. Dave hit it right on the nose, that with all local site plan and permitting attributes in place, there's really no way the town can slow anything down to say, oh, this is subject to an HCA. If they do have a 53-cent mill rate, that's great. Maybe the best thing for them to do is just not do anything.
Right.
And the project is going to be subject to that town tax exposure. It's not exempted for purposes of town taxes. The upside for both the town, well, the upside for the town and potential downside for the developer is they could build a giant sewer treatment plant or a brand new town hall or have a giant bridge or something. I mean, their mill rate could go to $5 someday. Don't know. Or they could just, replace snow plows occasionally and have a continued sub $1 mill rate. You don't know. But the school district is what it is. If it's built, the school district doesn't have an appetite or ability for HCA's. They do have the ability to accept their proportion of taxes. And that's where their appetite for a pilot is if this thing is built. Again, the important dates being the next tax status date if it's substantially complete. And really, if the developer got that far up the road without a pilot, the school does have some leverage to make sure that it reads intelligently. And if they have an appetite to make it consistent with what the village is doing and what the county is doing, a joint contract or a joint pilot that has important provisions embedded in it in terms of exact years, exact payment amounts, consistent payment dates. And if there's an ombudsman there that the IDA plays a role for, that may be great. And so one of the other things I point out on 487 is oftentimes you'll have a rural community where the only person that's paying attention is the town clerk. They have he or she may report to a supervisor that has fellow board members. They're not in the business of administering pilots. If someone forgets to bill it one year, maybe the next town clerk's like, well, geez, I didn't have that in my file. I didn't know how to bill this thing. Having an agency like yourself that really you have administrative staff, team, and depth to handle it would probably be a little bit better of a platform to deploy the thing on.
The other thing might be, I mean, if this educational contribution that the school's getting, they might be willing to give up the portion that they might collect as tax to the town.
Well, I think we got a plan moving forward.
Okay, so we'll leave up to hear back from you. You reach out, put them together, and then we'll coordinate with Justin.
Okay. Do we have anything else? That's about everything that was on the.
Just one update. You remember we had that Light Star, the Rutland project? We had the last meeting. They weren't sure yet at this point if they were going to close before the pilot or after they sold the project. So actually, I'll be talking to them later this morning. So we've had the public hearing. So they're basically saying that they basically, they don't know yet the value of their energy. So they have an agreement in place with this DSD they mentioned to us that may buy the project from them. But they've not yet closed the transaction. They're still waiting for NYSERDA to finalize the low to moderate income program matter. And so before they sell, they want to know the value of the product they have. But I guess in the meantime, should we go ahead with the final authorizing resolution at the next meeting for that Rutland project, or hold off? I guess I can just discuss that with them when I talk to them later this morning. I mean, I guess there are options. We can go ahead with the final authorizing resolution. Then they may go ahead and, now that it's approved, they may conclude the sale, and then come back to us for reassignment, right?
Is this for Felt Mills, Dave?
Yeah, the Felt Mills project, yeah.
Yeah, I get the sense that they may want to close and then come back for an assignment for approval. If I were to guess, they're going to send back comments to the documents allowing free assignment. Of course, I would respond in a way that you can guess.
Right.
What we would do is if they don't accomplish a sale before we close, it's going to have provisions in there that any assignment is going to be subject to your board approval.
Right.
If they look to sell before our closing, it's got to come back to you.
Right.
At that point, you would look for things like updated application certifications and things like that, so you have a firm understanding of who your counterpart.
Right. So I guess my question is, do we go ahead with the final authorizing resolution at this upcoming meeting? I assume we do.
This all comes down to whether or not Justin tells us it's safe to move ahead based upon what we know.
Yeah, well, for Felt Mills, I think we already adopted the authorizing resolution in October, did we not? Or are we waiting to do that?
Yeah, we just did the public hearing, right? Yeah.
I'm trying to keep them all straight in my head.
Yeah, me too. I'll double check. So. Yes, we did do the final authorizing resolution, right?
Yeah, we had to,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you
we
wouldn't
did.
have been able to do
Yeah.
the public hearing.
Yeah, so now it's just a matter of when they want to close. Okay, I'll find out more.
Right.
Yeah,
It's either be them or somebody else. If it's somebody else, it's got to come back to the board.
right,
If
yeah,
it close with them, great. And then they sell, it's got to come back to the board.
Right.
So we're just trying to get into that regime of always having the ability to identify who your client is, which I think is a fair expectation.
I think that was the one that they were going to use DSD, which was
Yeah.
previously General Electric, I believe. Distributed Solar Developers, remember? Was that not the one that they were going to assign it to that company?
yes, DSD it was,
Yeah.
yes.
And there's been further announcements, GE's now broken up into those three entities, and I'm kind of curious if it's going to actually be called DSD.
Yeah, I think Game Farm, that project as well, I think same target buyer.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out timing I asked them if they'd like to close, and then they went into a bit of a cogitation, so I'm trying to figure out the process on that one as well.
They'll close when they're ready, and they'll get no tax exemption until that time.
Right.
Or no tax certainty. I guess it's a circular thing. They have no certainty on anything.
From your lips to God's ears.
So,
Yeah, well.
So one of the things you want
Nobody
to talk-
would listen to me, so certainly God's not going to.
you want update on decommissioning?
Sure.
Bill, we almost done. I gotta run and.
Yep, we did.
Yeah, Jay's gonna give us an update here on decommissioning, but if you want to take off, that's fine.
Okay, I'll listen.
Okay, I emailed out to everybody, a draft, resolutions for Jefferson County Farm Bureau to take to their New York Farm Bureau Annual Convention. There were 7 resolutions. Jefferson County Farm Bureau has looked at those and they're very happy with them. They are indicating they probably will be setting up a meeting with myself, New York Farm Bureau CEO, and their general counsel to just go over these and see if they want to change these at all. So hopefully these will be put in front of their membership and be drafted as a statewide policy for New York Farm Bureau to utilize on decommissioning, because right now they have very little to no statewide policy when it comes to decommissioning of solar projects. I was curious as to whether anybody, if you had a chance to look at these, if anybody had any questions on them. I can quickly.
Jay, I did not get, I'm just checking my email now. I don't see an email from you that had any attachments for me.
It would have been late last week, Paul.
Usually you go to my junk folder, but
I go to everybody's junk folder.
you better resend it to me, Jay. I don't see it last week.
What I will do is I'll resend these, and if anybody has any comments or questions, please get these back to me. My intent now is to finalize a document to go to the subcommittee that we put in place, Paul, which you were part of, to take a look at these and incorporate these into recommendations to send out to the municipalities across the county. Mike Borsey at County Planning has offered to put those recommendations on his letterhead to send to all of the planning and county boards and so on. So that is the intent. I don't know if you want me to scan through these real quick. That's up to you. I don't know if you have time. I can.
Rob's got to run, so maybe we ought to just.
Yeah.
I mean, I can leave and you guys can listen. I just had to interrupt you and take a call just now that I got to call back.
Sure. Do you want me to
I'm
do
just
that?
going to excuse myself, and Jay, don't take it as a disrespectful sign if I don't care. I do. I'm gonna-
Thanks, Rob.
Hey, take care, guys.
I've actually got to run too.
Yeah, I'll just send these out. And
Justin's the only one getting paid for being here.
What?
What's that?
What?
You get paid for this?
We're not getting paid?
In heaven, you'll get paid. You'll be surrounded by 7 virgins or something of that nature. I don't know. Take care. Or say something more stupid. Bye.
So anyways, I'll send these out to everybody. And if you have comments on them, please let me know. And like I said, what we're trying to do here in Jefferson County is now rippling out across the state, which is a good thing. So,
In the meantime, too, as we said this earlier, I'll work with Lyle on some examples for pilot agreements using the administrative fee and different percentages, see how that balances out.
sure.
I sent you a list, Bill, of all of the projects I have pending, and the only ones closed are Oya and Tom Orleans. Any one of those projects that was not closed by Harris Beach has the same problems. So there are 18, and ASA is pending. I don't have that one on here yet.
Yeah, Justin's going to close that one.
Yeah, so that one will be done, right?
Very good.
All right.
Yes, we're good. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Justin.
Yeah, have a great morning, guys. Have a great day.
So Christine, you motioned to adjourn, right?
I did. I had it written right down here.
I'll second
Perfect.
All in favor, aye? Aye,
Aye.
we're good.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave, Jeff Pierce should be arriving momentarily. He came into town and said he was going to stop in, so I don't know if you're available.
Yep. Yeah, I am.
Maybe.
He's doing
I have
it.
to stop the recording. Dave.
Yeah, he's going to be here, so.
Good.
Yeah. So he should be here momentarily.